Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss the next topic, that is myocardial infarction. In the previous class we have discussed about the angina pectoris, where there is where in which the ischemia is the main cause. Same time, but the features of necrosis basically it lacks in case of angina pectoris. Now coming to the another important entity, that is myocardial infarction, and it is defined as the death of the cardiac muscle due to the prolonged severe ischemia, also called as heart attack. Around 2.5 million people affected annually in India, and 10% occur before the age of 40 years, and 45% MI occurs before the age of 60 years. Males are more at risk than the females, and blacks and white are equally affected. If we go through the causes of the myocardial infarction, the most important cause, which is seen in around 90% of cases, is the coronary artery occlusion because of atherosclerotic plaque formation, and there are the different events which takes place in the formation of atherosclerosis. So atherosclerosis is basically chronic inflammatory process which is of very long duration, and due to different type of risk factors which accumulate together, which leads to the injury to the endothelial cells. So the events which occurs is, the first event is the sudden damage to the atherosclerotic plaque which is already formed, and the acute plaque changes occurs mainly the ulceration and erosion, or it may be fissuring or rupturing. The ulceration or erosion is basically when the endothelial cells they are injured, so there is exposure of subendothelial tissue which is highly thrombogenic, and to this subendothelial tissue lot of platelet used to attach, and this process is called as platelet adhesion. After platelet adhesion, these sticked platelet basically they will undergo the release reaction, in which they releases lot of release a lot of chemical mediators, and especially the most important chemical mediator which attract the other platelets, that is the adenosine diphosphate or ADP. And when the platelet is stick to the platelet surface, this process is called as platelet aggregation. So through this process there is a formation of platelet plaque. So once the platelet plaque is formed, it will occlude the lumen basically partially or completely. So more than 90% of occlusion lead to the ischemia even at rest, and the patient experience lot of pain. Such type of problem is called as unstable angina, and when the occlusion is complete and it remain for prolonged period, then it result in myocardial infarction. So this is the process. Simultaneously there is vasospasm occurs due to thromboxane A2 release from the endothelial cells, injured endothelial cells, and tissue factors are activated, and there is the process of coagulation start, in which there is a conversion of soluble fibrinogen into a fibrin Mersburg, which result in thrombus formation, and this thrombus occlude the lumen completely and result in ischemia of prolonged duration, which causes the death of the cardiac myocyte and result in infarction. So this is a diagrammatic representation of the different type of acute plaque changes result in acute coronary syndromes. The acute coronary syndrome basically include the three important entities. The first is the myocardial infarction, second is the unstable angina, and the third one is the chronic ischemic heart disease. So as we have discussed in the previous slide, that there may be the atherosclerotic plaque may be a stable plaque in which there is a fixed coronary obstruction that leads to the typical angina, and this typical angina or this fixed coronary obstruction may undergo the hemodynamic changes which result in platelet aggregation. We have already discussed that the first event that occur is the platelet adhesion, then the platelet release reaction, and then the platelet aggregation, which forms the platelet aggregates. These platelet aggregates may undergo the healing, and this result in severe fixed coronary obstruction resulting in the chronic ischemic heart diseases, or this plaque may undergo the plaque disruption. In the plaque disruption, we will see the plaque undergoes the erosion or ulceration, or it may undergo the rupture or the fissuring. So if the plaque form the microthrombi and basically it occludes the lumen partially, that result in when the lumen is occluded more than 90%, that result in unstable angina or acute subendocardial myocardial infarction. Or when the lumen is completely occluded by the thrombi, then acute transmural myocardial infarction occurs, or it may lead to sudden cardiac death also. So this is the basically the main pathology. Now coming to the we have already discussed the different type of events in the atherosclerosis. As we can see in the diagram, there is the endothelial dysfunction, which basically occurs due to the hyperlipidemia, hypertension, smoking, hemorrhage, immune reactions, viruses. These are the risk factors which can injure the endothelial cells. And once the endothelial cells are injured, so there is a leakage of low density lipoprotein from the blood to the intimal region of the intima of the vessel wall. So simultaneously the LDL is leak out and is reached to the intima, and it is oxidized by the different cytokines to oxidize LDL. Simultaneously there is recruitment of the monocyte from the blood into the intima, and these cells are called macrophages, and these macrophages basically engulf the lipid and result in the formation of foam cells. So foam cells are basically the macrophages which contain the lipid droplets, and once these foam cells are formed, they will release the different type of growth factors which can stimulate or recruit the smooth muscle cells from the muscle layer to the intima, and these smooth cells get proliferated and form a fibrinous cap over the atheromatous plaque and result in the fixed coronary obstruction. So this is the main pathology. In 10% of the cases, transmural MI occur in the absence of typical coronary atherosclerosis. Vasospasm of the coronary artery due to the release of the platelet products such as thromboxane A2, or due to the ingestion of the cocaine or ephedrine, or due to the release of endothelin from the endothelial surface. And there may be the emboli, paradoximal emboli, which moves from the right atrium to the left through the foramen of Ovel. Ischemia without significant atherosclerosis is caused by the vasculitis disorder of the intramural coronary artery, sickle cell anemia, in which there is vaso-occlusion of the terminal capillaries or vessels wall under the low oxygen tension, aortic stenosis in which there is a marked hypertrophy can result in ischemia, shock, or low blood pressures. So these are the different type of causes which can cause the ischemia. Now coming to the myocardial response, how the myocardium respond to this ischemia. The first important event which occur is the onset of ATP depletion. So ATP used to ATP formation used to decrease within a seconds of ischemia, and when the ATP falls, this results in loss of contractility of the sarcomeres, which result within the 2 minutes. ATP also reduced to 50% of the normal within 10 minutes and to the 10% of normal within 40 minutes. And irreversible cell injury basically start from 20 to 40 minutes, and microvascular injury occurs more than 1 hour. So the initial event is very important up to the 40 minutes, in which the cells, basically the ischemic myocyte, they can be rescued, or they can be remodulated. So this the first half an hour is very important in case of myocardial infarction, in which we can recover the ischemic myocardium. After that, this ischemic myocardium undergoes the irreversible cell injury. If we go through the ultrastructural morphological changes, develops within few minutes. There is a myofibrillar relaxation. So myofibril basically relax, glycogen depletion because of anaerobic glycolysis, and mitochondrial swelling. These are the early manifestations of ischemia are potentially reversible. Ischemia lasting more than 30 minutes to the irreversible damage to the cardiac myocytes. The earliest detectable feature of myocardial necrosis are the structure change and the irreversible injury. The first is the disruption of the sarcolemmal membrane, which allows the intracellular molecules to leak in the circulation, and mitochondrial amorphous densities. So this is the graphic representation of the early events, in which we can see there is a progressive decrease in the ATP and progressive increase in the lactate within few minutes. Around 5 to 10 minutes there is a gradual fall, and around 20 to 30 minutes around more than 50% of ATP levels are fallen out, and the lactate levels are increased due to anaerobic glycolysis. The pathway by which the ATP are generated, the product of this pathway is the lactate. So the ischemic myocardium, which is potentially salvageable by the time of intervention, it is around just in case of reversible injury. For reversible phase, we can rescue the myocardium, whole of the myocardium, by doing any of the procedures of the 3 important procedures. The first one is antithrombolytic therapy, in which we used to give the streptokinase and the tissue plasminogen activators, which dissolve the thrombus and can restore the blood flow. The second one is the PTCA, that is percutaneous transluminal angioplasty, in which we used to pass a stent through a femoral artery, and it reaches to the site of obstruction, where it basically clears the obstruction, and it is planted there. The third step is the CABG, that is coronary artery bypass graft, in which we used to maintain the blood flow by bypassing the or bypassing the obstructive lumen of that, bypassing the obstruction, and we used to restore the blood flow to the ischemic myocardium. Now coming to the coronary artery supply. In the coronary artery supply is very important in order to know the exact location of the myocardial infarction. So depending on the obstruction of the coronary artery, we can able to clearly define the area which is going to be involved in the infarction. So the left and right coronary artery, the left coronary artery is basically divided into two important branches. First is left anterior descending branch, which basically supplies to the anterior wall of the left ventricle, apex, and the anterior 1/3 of the interventricular septum. The second is the left circumflex coronary artery, which supplies to the lateral wall of the left ventricles, and the right coronary artery basically it supplies to the right atrium, right ventricle, and posterior part of the left ventricle. Simultaneously, it also supplies the blood to the sinoatrial node, SA node, and AV nodes. So when this right coronary artery is occluded, not only the infarction occur in the right ventricle or the right atrium, but also it will injure the SA node or AV node, which result in sinus bradycardia or heart blocks. In the left coronary artery, basically it is the earliest portion or earliest part of the coronary artery which is involved in the atherosclerotic process, whereas in the right coronary artery, it is whole of the coronary artery is vulnerable for the blockage. So this is all about the blood supply of the heart. Now coming to the progression of the myocardial necrosis. Here we can see the diagrammatic representation of the coronary artery obstruction. It depends on the obstruction in the early within the 2 hours. You can see it is the early event in which basically the endocardium is involved, or you can see the zone of necrosis in the endocardium within 2 hours, and progressively it increases. So first infarction occurs basically subendothelial, and then progressively it increases to the full length, that is transmural infarction, which occurs basically within 24 hours. So this is the diagrammatic representation of the myocardial necrosis. If we go through the distribution of myocardial necrosis, we can see depending on the involvement of the permanent occlusion, in which whenever there is a permanent occlusion occurs, it results in transmural infarct. So the occlusion of left anterior descending branch can lead to the infarction of the anterior wall of the left ventricle. Permanent occlusion of the left circumflex branch result in the infarction of the lateral wall of the left ventricle. There is the permanent occlusion of the right coronary artery or its posterior descending branch result in the infarction of the posterior part of the left ventricle. Simultaneously, when the blockage is partial or transient partial blockage, it results in subendocardial infarct. Basically, the innermost layer is involved because it is most vulnerable. It will receive less amount of oxygen, so it undergoes the infarction. There is another circumferential subendocardial infarct is also seen in case of global hypotension. When the patient have severe shock, it result in circumferential subendocardial infarct. Small intramural vessels occlusions can also lead to microinfarct at various levels in the subendocardium. So there are two important type of infarct, that is transmural infarct and the non-transmural infarct or subendocardial infarct. The pattern of infarction is transmural infarct, necrosis involving the full length of the ventricle wall in distribution of the coronary artery, usually associated with the combination of the chronic atherosclerosis, acute plaque changes and superimposed thrombus formation. In the ECG, we can see the ST segment elevation, so it is also called as STEMI or ST segment elevation myocardial infarction. The second one is subendocardial infarction. This is the least perfured region of the myocardium. This area is most vulnerable to the ischemia. It usually involves the inner one-third of the myocardium, occur as a result of the plaque disruption followed by the thrombosis. This can also occur in the severe reduction of the blood pressure as in shock or global hypertension, in which we can see the circumferential subendocardial infarcts. The ECG basically shows the ST segment depression and they are also called as NSTMI or non-ST segment MI. If we go through the morphology, the left anterior descending coronary artery is the most important artery which is involved in around 40 to 50% of cases, and the infarction area which is the anterior wall of the left ventricle near the apex and the anterior portion of the left ventricular septum. The right coronary artery involves around 30 to 40% of cases. Infarction in inferior and posterior wall of the left ventricle and posterior portion of the ventricular septum, and left circumflex coronary artery is basically involved in 15 to 20% involving the lateral wall of the left ventricle except the apex. If we want to recognize the earliest changes, grossly basically the changes are basically we are unable to see the changes up to the 12 hours, but by using a special stain we stain the infarcted area by a special stain, that is the TTC or triphenyl tetrazoline chloride. If we immerse the necrotic tissue in this solution, we can see that the uninfarcted area or the normal myocardium basically stained brick red in color due to the presence of the enzyme, that is lactate dehydrogenase, whereas the infarcted area appear as an unstained pale John due to lack of lactate dehydrogenase. So grossly we can see as early as by 2 to 3 hours by using a special histochemical stain. If we go through the microscopic changes in the earliest event in which the reversible injury takes place, that is from 0 to 30 minutes, gross changes are none. Light microscopic also none, but under the electron microscope we can see the three important changes. The first one is the relaxation of myofibrils, glycogen loss, mitochondrial swelling. Now coming to the irreversible changes which occurs from 30 minutes to 4 hours, grossly there is no change. Under the light microscope you will see the waviness of the fibers at the borders. Under the electron microscope we have the two important features, that is sarcolemmal destruction and the mitochondrial amorphous densities. 4 to 12 hours there is a grossly you can see the occasional dark mottling, and early under the light microscope you can see the early coagulation necrotic event along with the edema and hemorrhage. From 12 to 24 hours the dark mottling is more prominent, and ongoing coagulation necrosis, stenosis of nuclei, myocyte hypereosinophilia, marginal contraction, band necrosis, and early neutrophilic infiltrate is seen within 12 to 24 hours. After 1 to 3 days, the mottling with the yellow tan infarcts area, coagulation necrosis with the loss of the nuclei and striation, brisk interstitial infiltrate of the neutrophils. 3 to 7 days, we can see the hyperemic borders, central yellow tan softening, beginning disintegration of the dead and myocytes with the dying neutrophils, early phagocytosis of the dead cells by the macrophages at the infarcted borders. In the 7 to 10 days, maximally the yellow tan and soft with depressed red tan margins are seen. Well-developed phagocytosis of the dead cells and the early formation of the fibrovascular granulation tissue at the margins is evident. By the end of the 10 to 14 days, the red-gray depressed infarct border. Under the light microscope, you will have the well-established granulation tissue with the new blood formation and collagen deposition. After 2 to 8 weeks, the gray-white scar formation occurs and progressive from the border towards the core of the infarct. There is increased collagen deposition with the decreased cellularity, and after 2 months, we can have the scarring is complete and the dense collagenous scar is formed. So these are the events which basically occurs with time duration under the light microscope and the electron microscopy and grossly. So this is the microscopic slides in which we can see the first day infarct showing the coagulated necrosis along the waviness of the fibers. These fibers are elongated and they are eosinophilic. In the 3rd to 4th days of infarction, we can see the neutrophilic abundance of neutrophils along with the coagulative necrosis. The outer border is of this cardiac myocyte is maintained, but there is a loss of nuclei. Within 7 to 10 days, the macrophage infiltration occurs, and this basically the dead and necrotic cardiac myocyte is eaten up by the macrophages, and we can see the lot of macrophages infiltrated within 7 to 10 days. In 10 to 14 days, there is a new capillary tube formation or new vascularization occurs. So lot of capillaries are seen with the granulation tissue. In the 2 to 8 weeks, collagen deposition, decreased cellularity is seen. So these are the microscopic feature of the myocardial infarction. So these are the different events. In the first day, we can see the coagulated necrosis with the waviness of the fibers. 3rd to 4th day, we can see the dense neutrophilic infiltrate. In the 7 to 10 days, macrophage infiltration with the removal of the necrotic tissue. And 10 to 14 days, the granulation tissue with neovascularization. And 2 to 8 weeks, collagen deposition and decreased cellularity. So these are the microscopic events which can takes place with the time. In fact, modification by the reperfusion. Reperfusion can be done by the various methods. The first important method is the thrombolytic agents. Here we can use the injection streptokinase or tissue plasmin activators, which can dissolve the thrombus and restores the perfusion or restore the blood supply to the infarcted area. The second one is the percutaneous transluminal coronary angioplasty, in which we used to pass the stent through the femoral artery, and at the site of obstruction it is implanted and the obstruction is released and the infarcted area can be reperfused. The third one is the CABG, that is coronary artery bypass graft, in which basically a bypass is made to a bypass is made by using a different type of arteries taken from other site and placing a bypass around the occluded vessels. Reperfusion main aim is to rescue the ischemic myocardium as early as possible through the various intervention. So these are the consequences of ischemic myocardium by the reperfusion. Here we can see if the oxygen is stored within 20 minutes, the whole of the myocardium can be rescued. If the reperfusion occurs between 2 to 4 hours, there is a partial salvage of the myocardium, and when the permanent occlusion progressively continues, then there is a complete infarct and no myocardium can be rescued of the infected region. Now coming to the reperfusion induced myocardial injury, not so around 10% of myocytes basically died after the reperfusion. So they are called as reperfusion induced myocardial injury. The first important event occurs is the intra-infarct myocardial hemorrhage due to the leakage of the RBCs from the injured blood vessels. Second one is the contraction bands, which occurs due to the entry of the calcium triggered by deleterious complications. The first important is the intra-infarct myocardial hemorrhages, which occurs due to the leakage of the RBC from the injured vessels. The second one is the formation of the contraction bands. So the entry of the calcium, abundant amount of calcium is entered in the ischemic myocytes that result in the contraction of the sarcomeres, and this appears as contraction bands in the myocytes. The third one is the sinus arrhythmias. Entry of the calcium also increase the resting membrane potential to the threshold. So individual myocytes used to fire and result in the arrhythmias. The fourth is called as myocardial stunning. So rescued myocardium basically remains dysfunctional for few days, then it starts the contraction. So these now coming to the diagnosis, the clinical features, the electrocardiogram and the biochemical markers are used to diagnose the myocardial infarction, and it is very important to know the diagnosis. So coming to the clinical features, the pain is severe crushing substernal pain which may radiate to the jaw or left arm or neck. So this is a typical feature of the pain which is radiating to the jaw, neck and the left arm. Pain is not relieved by the nitroglycerin, lasts for hours to days. Third one is absent in 30-40%. The pain may be absent in 30 to 40% cases of diabetes mellitus, hypertension or elderly persons. Pulse is rapid and weak. Diaphoresis or sweating occurs, and dyspnea or shortness of the breath. Cardiogenic shock in case of massive MI, more than 40% of the left ventricle is infarcted. The ECG changes, you can see the earliest ECG changes which occurs within few minutes is the tau and peak T waves, and these tau and peak T waves are followed by the ST segment elevation, and there occur the T wave inversion, and then ST segment normal, and pathological Q wave is formed after the healing. So number of pathological Q waves can give a clue of number of infarction to that particular patient. So detection of these pathological Q waves are very important in case of reinfarction. The rate of appearance of these markers now coming to the cardiac biomarkers, the rate of appearance of these markers in the peripheral circulation depend on their location, low molecular weight, blood flows and lymphatic drainage. Cardiac troponin I and T and creatine kinase MB fraction. So these are the different type of macromolecules which leaks from the injured myocytes, and they appears in the blood. The first one is the cardiac troponin. It is a protein that regulates the calcium-mediated contraction of the cardiac and skeletal muscles. It is a most specific and sensitive marker. The troponin T and I both begins to rise within 3 to 12 hours and peak at 24 hours, and they will remain elevated for 7 days. So this is very important marker. Now coming to the second one is the creatine kinase, that is the MB fraction, is specific for the myocardial tissue injury. So CKMB levels used to rise within 4 to 6 hours after the symptom onset and peak in 18 to 24 hours and return to the baseline within 3 days. Advantage of this, they are useful in the early diagnosis of myocardial infarction and used for the diagnosis of reinfarction. Disadvantage is that not used for the delayed admission more than 2 days and not 100% specific, as they are also elevated in skeletal muscle damage. Now coming to the complication and consequence of myocardial infarction, the first important complication is the contractile dysfunctioning, which occurs due to the infarction. The infarcted area undergo the lack of contraction or failure of contraction that result in the pump failure. Basically ventricles are used to fail to pump the blood, and that result in cardiogenic shock, and the patient will have not only the pulmonary edema and dyspnea, along with there is contractile dysfunction also. The second one is the arrhythmias, which occurs due to the entry of the calcium and result in the lethal arrhythmias. Then the myocardial ruptures occur within 3 to 7 days because of extensive infiltration of neutrophils and the dead and necrosed myocytes. During this period, the myocardium is soft and flabby, and it is usually weak, and it is more prone to rupture. Ventricular aneurysm can occur. Pericarditis may result due to the MI. Infarction expansion. The infarcted area, when it contracts, it undergoes the ballooning or expansion. So this is called as infarct expansion. There is another term that is called infarct extension. In the infarct extension, a new type of obstructions are found in the vessels, and the more new areas are involved. Along with the older infarcted area, there is involvement of new areas. This is called as infarction extension. There is a mural thrombus formation, papillary muscle dysfunction, and heart failures. So these are the different type of complications of myocardial infarction. Now coming to the cardiac rupture syndrome, various forms of the cardiac rupture typically occurs in the transmural necrosis of the ventricle. The rupture of the ventricle free wall, most common, leads to the hemopericardium and cardiac tamponade. The rupture of the ventricular septum, less common, and leading to the left to right shunt and the ventricular septal defect. So this is an acquired type of ventricular septal defect is formed in case of rupture of the ventricular septum. Then the least common is the papillary muscle rupture, which leads to the severe mitral regurgitation. So these are the different these are the diagrams of the different type of ruptures. You can see the ventricular rupture, then the interventricular septum rupture, the cardiac papillary muscles are ruptured. So these are the different type of ruptures you can see, and they are together called as cardiac rupture syndromes. Now coming to the management, the morphine can be given to relieve the pain and improve the dyspneic symptoms. Prompt reperfusion to salvage the myocardium. Antiplatelet agents such as the aspirin, which can inhibit GP2B3A, and nitrates to reduce to nitrates can be used as vasodilators. Beta blockers to reduce the myocardial contraction or oxygen demands by decreasing the contractility. Antiarrhythmic drugs to manage the arrhythmias. ACE inhibitors to limit the ventricular dilatation, and oxygen supplementers to improve the oxygen saturation. So thank you. So this is the basically the topic of myocardial infarction. Thank you very much.